Makes it really nice. Oh, I forgot, Lori told me so.
Yeah.
Well, I
My friends don't like to ride. They're all modern, so.
have more time. Hey, guys, how about we call the meeting to order? 5:31. And let Alex do the roll call.
Right. Kevin Whitney is not here. Dan Hain? Here. Emma's not here. Paul Flowey? O'Harvin?
Yeah. That's good to start with, that's good. I always love it. No, it's just the back of the garden. Ooh, that's what I've done. Good shit. Spoon right there. Look, if you get too close. Yeah, it's pretty garlicky, isn't it? This is what you're gonna stir that with? You're gonna cook your, cook it for a little bit. Get your flavor in there, and then we'll put some shrimp in there, the shrimp.
I don't know if you guys are having difficulties, but it's freeze framing a bit.
See you clear. Would you like to introduce yourself and let us know on behalf of what application and who you're associated with?
I am Chuck Miller. I'm the zoning code enforcement officer for the town of Solon, and I am with you tonight because Jerry Dwayne could not be with us. And I know the review for their new zoning law is being reviewed.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you.
And would you introduce yourself?
I'm Kelly Sullivan. I'm a senior project manager for Bergman for the Delaware River Solar Project in the town of Hartford.
Welcome. Thank you. Okay. Shall we get an approval on the minutes? And a second? All those in favor? Anybody opposed or have questions? Okay, long meeting tonight. So we'll try and keep it as consolidated as possible. But first of all, I'd like to thank the director and the planner for their hard work throughout this whole review of this month's package, as well as providing a great GML tracker. That was really good and allows us to follow the actions of what we've already
You
reviewed.
received my comments on that?
I saw your
Yeah.
email.
Great job, I like it.
It really helps, yeah.
Virgil and just putting it together. Hopefully it's not going to be like that going forward.
Hopefully not.
No.
Yeah.
If it is,
Now that
if it is, say something and we'll regroup.
Yeah. Yeah. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tricia.
So I just wanted to let everybody know that this would be my last planning board meeting in this role. I gave my month's notice to the county on Monday, and I really appreciate everybody sitting on this board and all the time and effort you put into it. But I wasn't actively looking, but there came an opportunity that I couldn't pass by. So I'll be sad to leave the county, but I will certainly not be leaving the community. I will still be in Cortland County, and I'm sure I will still be active in as many ways as possible, because I definitely am very passionate about the county and moving forward. So.
Yeah, do we still have?
Hello?
We
Mr. View. Mr. Harper, maybe you can consider that at that legislator meeting? Would certainly entertain her putting her name forward to join the board. Good. And we're so inclined. We'll put her in a half dozen later.
So Alex says there is a member seat open also, Emma.
So something to consider with judges, so you have to completely abandon it.
Definitely food for thought.
That's a yes vote.
I heard that too. Sounds like yes to me.
Yep.
with our CML review?
I have to do it from over here because I didn't print out the first one because it came separately.
Oh, is that the number 2 packet that we received? Okay.
The one shows the panels from every different direction.
First one is a special use permit and site plan review for the purpose of developing 2 4.98 megawatt AC and 1.5 megawatt AC community solar farms. The property is described as 740 O'Brien or O'Brien Hill Road, so we're going to pronounce it, and 35 Route 38. It's in the town of Hartford. It is zoned agriculture and R2 residential. Is being referred to county planning as it's located within 500 feet of Route 38, Route 200, and the Richford town line / Tioga county line. Community solar energy systems are permitted in the agricultural district by special use permit and site plan review. It should be noted that solar energy systems are not permitted in the R2 residential district. The interconnection facility located off of Route 38 is in the R2 district. Since that is considered part of the solar energy system, a use variance will be required. I spoke with Adam, the code enforcement officer, about that. It is, so, they are also proposing to subdivide the parcel off of O'Brien Hill Road into 3 lots, but the town of Hartford does not have, and I know I keep saying that, pronouncing it like it's a T, Hartford. The town of Hartford doesn't have subdivision regulations. So because of that, subdivision will not be under review by either county or town planning. They are, however, required to comply with the minimum lot requirements, so they will need some variances for that. Section 24.5811 requires all commercial ground-mounted solar energy systems to be completely enclosed by a fence. The ground-mounted solar panels follow the requirements, but the interconnection facility off of Route 38 does not, so it's recommended that they enclose the fence. Section 24.7F2 requires the fencing to bear warning signs, the owner's name and emergency contact information on any access point to the system and perimeter fencing. It's recommended that the applicant update their site plan to show those locations, the locations of those warning signs. And it's also recommended that the applicant ensure that the warning signs are kept up to date. Section 24.519 requires fire access roads and access for fire apparatus equipment. It also requires Knox Company locks on the gates for the access. It's recommended that the applicant obtain written approval of the site plan from the town of Hartford Volunteer Fire Department. Section 24.5.1A requires solar energy systems located in areas of prime farmland or farmland statewide importance to not exceed 50% of those areas. It is located on farmland statewide importance, but it's not clearly defined whether it will exceed 50% before or after subdivision. So it's recommended that should the town determine that it will exceed 50% of the area, that the applicant apply for and obtain an area. Should be noted that that section 24.5.1 also requires that if it is on area of prime farmland or statewide importance, that it's constructed with the requirements of New York State Department of Ag and Market. Section 24.7G4 requires the applicant to submit their proposed commercial solar energy system maintenance and inspection procedures. The planning department has not received that, so it's recommended that they submit that to the town if they have not already done so. Section 24.7G10 requires the applicant to submit a visual impact, minimization, and mitigation plan that responds to any concerns raised as a result of the visual impact assessment. The planning department has not received either of those documents, so it's recommended that they submit that to the town if they have not already done so. The applicant is also required to submit a decommissioning plan in conformance with the ordinance. Since the planning department has not received that, it's recommended that the applicant submit to the town if they have not already done so. Site plan shows two entrances to the facility, one off of Route 38 and one off of O'Brien Hill Road. Since O'Brien Hill Road is a town road, it's recommended that the applicant secure a driveway permit from the town highway superintendent. We just a couple of months ago, 2 months ago in fact, reviewed a local road use and preservation law for the town of Hartford. They will be required to apply for a permit in accordance with that law. We did have a coordinated review committee on this proposal, and had a couple comments. From Jeff Deep at the Department of Transportation, he commented that any proposed working within the state right-of-way, including a driveway off of 38, and utility connections will require a highway work permit. Julie Melancon from the DEC had a lot of comments. I'm not going to go through them all. Read them all. I'll have to read them all later anyway. So, and then Kathy McGrath from Cortland County Soil and Water Conservation District commented that she recommends replanting disturbed areas with native New York plant species to enhance ecological value. The applicant attended the CRC meeting and took the comments into consideration and answered many questions verbally. After some discussion over the SWIP and land disturbance, it was determined that the applicant will apply for a 5-acre waiver. It's recommended that the applicant submit an updated SWIP to the DEC for review approval before 5-acre subs. Finally, the proposed special use permit and site plan review are considered a Type 1 action under SEQR. Staff recommends approval of this application to develop two 4.98 megawatt AC and 1.5 megawatt AC solar farms only if the following contingencies are satisfied: that the applicant apply for and obtain a use variance to allow the interconnection facility in the R2 district, that the applicant apply for and obtain area variances to gain relief from lot frontage, side yard setback, and rear yard setback requirements, that the site plan be updated to show the interconnection facility completely enclosed by a fence complying with section 24.511, that the applicant update the site plan to show locations of the warning signs required in section 24.7N2, that the applicant ensure the warning signs required in section 24.7N2 are kept up to date, that the applicant obtain written approval from the site plan from the town of Hartford Falls Fire Department, that should the town determine the solar project to exceed the percent of the farmland statewide importance, the applicant apply for obtaining an area variance, that the applicant construct the proposed commercial solar energy system in accordance with construction requirements of the New York State Department of Ag and Markets, that the applicant submit their proposed commercial solar energy system maintenance and inspection procedures to the town, that the applicant submit visual impact assessment and visual impact minimization and mitigation plans to the town, that the applicant submit a decommissioning plan showing conformance with that to the town, that the applicant secure a driveway permit from the town highway superintendent, that the applicant apply for and obtain a permit to generate high-frequency truck traffic in accordance with the town of Hartford road preservation law, that the applicant obtain a permit from DOT for any work in the state right-of-way, that the applicant identify the party responsible for the long-term operation and maintenance of stormwater facilities on the site, that the applicant submit an updated SWIP to DEC for review and approval. That slopes over 5% with panels incorporate permanent level spreaders or energy dissipation devices along the contour. That the filter strip areas on the plan be shown to filter water after it reaches the impervious area, not before. That the applicant detail the erosion and sediment control measures that will be used on site. That the applicant identify staging and stockpile areas, solid waste and sanitary facilities, job trailers, fuel storage areas, equipment staging areas, and concrete washouts. That the applicant update references on the plan sheet to New York standards and specifications for erosion and sediment control. That seeding takes place in the off-season for stabilization. That the applicant includes specifications for degrading and decompaction. That when running machinery to crimp straw mulch, the machinery runs so the tracks are parallel to the contour, not perpendicular. That the applicant indicate areas on the plans where rolled erosion control product will be used. That the applicant remove references to DOT specifications and change them to DEC standards. That the applicant show how runoff will make it to the on-site pond. That the applicant identify the type of pond shown on the site in terminology that coordinates with New York State Stormwater Management Design Manual. That the entire water quality volume and runoff reduction volume be provided. That the applicant consider replacing disturbed areas with native New York plant species to enhance ecological value and compliance with these.
Can I get a motion to accept staff's recommendations? All second? Dan? How about some discussion?
Yeah, Alex, I guess, I'll go. So, there were a lot of recommendations from the joint committee, and you captured them all, I guess, through 1 through 31.
Yeah.
And as recommendations and/or stipulations. So I guess I have a question to the applicant. The young lady was representing the applicant, right?
Can you hear okay?
Yeah, I can hear. Yeah.
Are you aware of all the listed stipulations or recommendations from first the joint committee and then the county planning office?
Yes, we went over those last week and we've been incorporating them into our plans. So that we can.
With your plans?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Are all those recommendations and stipulations consistent and fitting in with your plans and how you're going to conduct?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Chuck, did you?
Oh, there were a couple, I think, it covered most of them. There was a SWIP submitted, right? And they
Yes.
reviewed it. It doesn't sound like it was very thorough from the sounds of it.
It was pretty big, that's why I didn't include it.
Right, but there were some issues I saw, like I was looking at the stormwater retention pond, whatever the thing is they got on their drawing. It wasn't like, but I don't know how the water gets to it. They don't show any ditches or any way to get the water to the thing. And it's only on one side, and some slopes go the other way down to the other road, so I don't know how they're doing their stormwater plant. The other thing, the road, then from the town road, it's like a 10% slope. It's got 20-foot cuts in some places. And I don't show any ditches, any check dams, or anything on that. Water's going to be ripping down that road when it rains. It's going to cause a mess down at the bottom, and there's nothing where it hits the road down to the bottom. So I don't know what they're going to do with that water that comes down that road. It's going to be coming down pretty fast.
So this was a preliminary SWIP. What it was is just basically so that we could size our retention ponds. We had not finalized the layout with the town yet. That's why we didn't go into the detail of the grading and whatnot, because it is going to be quite extensive. The final SWIP will be sent to the county, for the review, as well as the DEC. So they have to sign off on it. The way that it is right now, it would not be signed off on. However, the site plan was not finalized yet, so we weren't confident in spending the time and going through and finalizing our SWIP if the layout was going to change.
Okay, but I just want to be sure that when it is done, somebody looks at those things for the town. So I'm not sure if Harvard has people to look at that kind of stuff or not.
The town's going to hire
Are they going
an
to?
engineering
As long as they have somebody to look it over for them.
All those were called out, which yeah.
Right, but like some of those things are going to have check dams in that road or something to stop a mess from happening. So hopefully somebody's reviewing that. But as long as somebody reviews it, the comments, I think that the DEC may stuff like that. So there's no concerns.
Julie's going to finalize
the review too, the SWIP, and she was looking at it with a very fine-tooth comb.
Okay.
So, as well as the consultant that the town's hiring. And that's why, you know, we go over a lot of these comments in our coordinator review committee, but that's why we include them in our report too, just so that the town is aware of what to be cognizant of too. Because we want everybody, we want to be transparent and, you know, again, nothing against you guys, you know, putting together, but we want to just make sure that, I mean, you're going through them now, you're going to check it all off, but just so somebody else can see that checklist too.
Well, yeah, they're listed, but.
Right.
Here's
Yeah.
the list we're gonna tell you about, okay, here's the list we're gonna tell you about again.
Yeah, yeah.
As long as the town has somebody review when they get their final plans and stuff like that, I don't think we're doing the right thing, okay? There's missing things on those plans they're gonna have to have.
And Julie, as well, Soil and Water, has made it very clear that with some of these solar development projects that have happened in the past, stormwater runoff can be a huge issue when it's not properly addressed. And so that's just something I think that those other agencies now are also keeping a much closer eye on. But
The amount of work that goes into creating these SWIPs, it takes somebody like an engineer a full 40-hour work week at a minimum. So it's kind of a balancing act of making sure that we're not wasting our time on something that's going to change again and require just as much work. So, you know, the final will not have this many comments, hopefully.
And again, as long as the town has some, because sometimes they don't. And then if it comes in, we have to make the recommendations here for final and see them. As long as they're getting something, yeah.
I can double check that, but I'm
Okay.
95%
I'm sure
sure
something,
they told me they
they're
were.
detailed.
Yeah.
Locations selected for the project, but I feel these government guidelines that it's safe enough that we should agree with your recommendation, or I should. As long as there is somebody
It's like, I don't know.
Well, I would think the town would, you know better than to not allow some of these major concerns of ours to go forward without some improvement.
one thing I thought was really interesting, that was the conversation that the consultant had with the openings. There's required openings in their solar law in the fence to allow for wildlife. And they just raised the whole fence up 6 inches, right? So you guys,
It's a lot easier to construct that way, and so instead of the little rabbit finding those holes, it's like it can have free reign. So
What about those sheep?
they'll get out.
Oh, they
The baby ones are fine.
Yeah, just kidding. Okay, anybody else have anything?
The only other little thing, because the recommendation says only if the following contingencies are satisfied, and I know this is a quibble, but recommendation number 30, it just says consider, and if we're saying all of these things need to be done, then I would like to see us change recommendation number 30 to say the applicant replant disturbed areas. Just make it a positive as opposed to a think about it. That's my only little.
I thought about it to really dismiss it.
That only little quibble.
Yeah.
Motion to amend the,
I'll make a motion.
you make the motion?
I'll make a motion to,
Second.
on item for our guest, on item number 30 in the list, my motion is to just change the wording to say the applicant replant disturbed areas, and then it continues. Remove consider.
All those in favor of accepting the amendment? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. So, all those in favor of accepting the final recommendations with the added amendment in there? Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay.
You're all set?
Thank you.
Thank you.
for attending.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Aye.
I got a couple of questions. How many solar farms do we have in the county at this point in time?
We actually started making a list and a map.
That's a lot harder than the GML tracker.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Enough to provide power to
So you don't know.
resident household in the county.
Last year.
You can get free power.
Which, like, what,
Yeah.
like, how, what size?
I don't care about the size. It just, my question is, how many solar farms in the county, which leads me to my next question is, depending on how many are here at this point in time, how many are online? And I would say you can't answer that because you can't answer the first one.
Right.
And then my third question is, does anybody monitor the actual output, and does it compare to what the predictions are?
And how you do
So,
that.
so again,
Well,
all
there's
three
also-
questions are unanswered. Yeah, and who monitors that? Is it the facility that maintains the facility, or is it an independent that monitors that?
The worst part is, so we've gone around and around and trying to like pin down actual contacts for some of these projects, but there's like 3 different parties. There's the developers, there's the operators, it's really hard to get final contact.
Well, there's a reason for that.
Yeah. Avoid charges. But in general, I think they do have.
Well, I asked Dan a while ago, when Dan was still here, I think it was during the transition, what is the capacity current? And we're already at over 100% of the county's capacity for usage.
Really?
We're generating more solar than we use electrically. And quite frankly, there's no benefit to us because it's all state regulated. Everybody should have free electric, but they don't.
No, I like going up.
No.
Power bill.
Yeah, exactly.
Rates are increasing 30% or something, I read.
So,
Yeah, my neighbor, one of my neighbors works for a NICEAG, and they said because the government forgave so much of this back bills and what have you, and they have no way of getting it back. So instead of getting the government upset, everybody mad at the government, NICEAG and National Grid just put a fee on there to collect that money back. If they get mad at the power company, what are they gonna do?
It's pretty tough. We actually just had a conversation with Tompkins County too, and they're concerned about some developments and the lack of local involvement in the larger projects. At the county level, the lack of review capabilities to.
There's gonna be the big power station site, right?
Well, like wind energy facilities, they're made to report annual expulsion of energy to the, main power sources and keep a written report of that.
Well, there's like that EDF project for the McGraw, or the Solon, Cortlandville, that doesn't come through here. There's no.
Oh, yeah.
They're going.
Now that they've gone above and beyond local government.
Right.
Yeah, so we approve these programs or what have you, but really, in my opinion, I don't think they're very well monitored. Obviously, I'm not a big fan of it.
And just
I've been
monitoring.
sold a bill of goods, but again, let's not go there.
Well, just
I
the
think they
monitoring for
produce
decommissioning or, loss of use and
At what
everything,
cost?
that's an
Well-
important thing in my mind.
Like Lime Hollow's building they build out there, they have excess power. It's 100% covered by the solar panels on their roof for one facility. So it generates power even, they do work. But whether it's the amount you're thinking, I really don't know. But I know they have excess power that they can't use. They have to sell it back.
gotta pay the lobbyists.
That's a
I'd
private.
rather have a solar farm that isn't necessarily fully utilized than fracking. So, I mean, all it does, if they don't utilize it and generate as much power as they can, they're just missing the sunshine. They're not putting anything else in the environment, so that's up to the business. I'm not worried about whether or not they maximize their solar output.
What was philosophical?
Or Chuck there, too.
Open up that can
Yeah.
of worms.
Chuck's like, are we talking about zoning?
I'm gonna skip the use variance just to go to zoning law so we can, Chuck can get out of here at some point.
This Yankee game today.
All right. Zoning law review for the purpose of promoting the health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community, the location and the use of buildings, structures, and the land for trade, commercial, residence, farming, and other purposes. It's being referred to county planning because it impacts property throughout the town of Solon. Their current zoning law was passed in 1999. The reason they're updating it is because they felt it was time to update. It was a while ago. Articles 1 and 2 outline the proposed law's short title and administration. The zoning law will primarily be administered by the town code enforcement officer, who is present, who will receive and process zoning permit applications, et cetera. It's pretty similar to the current one, not a lot changed there. Article 3 establishes 2 zoning districts for the town, residential and agricultural. It also establishes the zoning map for the town of Solon, and the only difference between the current law and the new zoning map is the combination of Ag 1 and Ag 2 districts. We'll get to that a little later. Should be noted that unlike the current zoning law, this article does not establish a commercial district, nor does the zoning law designate any commercial uses as allowed in any remaining district. While the current zoning law does not designate any land in the commercial district, it establishes a path for commercial development to occur should it fit into the town's vision and comprehensive plan. Without this development path, the town may see an increase in use variance requests and legal challenges from businesses that cannot be disallowed per state and federal law, such as adult-oriented stores or cannabis dispensaries. Should a use variance or a legal challenge be approved, the town would have no authority to regulate commercial uses beyond established setback requirements. Therefore, recommended that the town amend the proposed zoning law to allow commercial uses by site plan review and/or conditional permit in either a new district or by reestablishing a commercial district. Article 4, residential district, outlines permitted uses and bulk regulations for residential districts. The article is relatively similar to the current law, but with some notable changes. Most notable of those is the addition of the following subsections. Quote, domestic animals, the keeping of domestic animals other than household pets shall be allowed. If a bona fide complaint regarding animal sound, smell, or land use comes to the Planning/Zoning Board of Appeals, it will be taken under consideration by the board to approve or disapprove that issue. The first sentence of this subsection allows the keeping of domestic animals as an accessory use. Once allowed, a use cannot become disallowed on arbitrary grounds. The way the law is currently written, an owner of domestic animals could have their allowed use revoked arbitrarily based on the opinions of a complainant and board. Instead, the law must be written to show clear criteria for owners of domestic animals to follow so they can know if they're following the law or not. Say, if I own domestic animals, I should be able to know if I am following the law or not. You know, I shouldn't have to keep my neighbors happy. That's it. Well, I mean, you should, but, you know, that shouldn't be the only factor. Therefore, recommended that the town amend that subsection to show clear criteria on the keeping of domestic animals, removing any arbitrary application of the law. It's further recommended that the town define what constitutes a domestic animal. Other notable changes are to the bulk regulations outlined in Section 17. Current zoning law requires a minimum lot area of 30,000 square feet, or 0.6887 acres. The new minimum lot area is proposed to be 3 acres in the residential district, the same as will be required in agriculture districts. Since the residential district consists primarily of the town's hamlets, this change will render the majority of lots in this district non-conforming. The non-conformity over time will lead to less dense developments. There's some other changes to the bulk regulations in a kind of similar theme. It's recommended that the town consider amending Section 17 to avoid creating a large amount of non-conforming lots in the residential district. Article 5, Agriculture Districts, outlines permitted uses and bulk regulations in agriculture districts. It's a combination of the current zoning laws, Ag 1 and Ag 2 districts. The only difference between the current laws, Ag 1 and Ag 2 districts, is the exclusion of manufactured homes. Since state law says you can't discriminate between manufactured homes and stick-built homes, they've been combined because they've been functionally the same anyway. Bulk regulations are also changing, minimum lot area from 2 to 3 acres, minimum width from 250 feet to an average of 300, adding minimum lot depth of 250 feet. Article 6, special regulations, outlines special regulations that apply to all districts. It proposes moderate changes compared to the current zoning law, with a couple notable changes. Firstly, Section 20, regulations for manufactured homes, has been amended to comply with state law. Secondly, the removal of commercial uses from zoning law conflicts with Section 22, daycare facilities, Section 27, commercial excavation and stripping of topsoil, and Section 31, vehicular activity, as disallows the possibility of these uses in the town. Since these uses would not be allowed in any district, sections have no further use. So it's recommended that they are moved unless the town allows commercial uses by site plan review and or conditional permit in either a new district or reestablishing a commercial district. Articles 7, 8, and 9 are simply local laws, 1 of 2010, 1 of 2015, and 1 in 2020, the flood damage prevention law, the wind energy facilities law, and the solar energy systems law, just to put it in the overall zoning text. Article 10, special authorizations and variances, and Article 11, conditional use permits, outline procedures for special authorizations, variances, and conditional use permits. It's significantly different from the current zoning law, but generally the only differences are made consistent with current state law. This section also outlines the procedure for approving home occupations. So it should be noted that the 2020 Residential Code of New York State requires that home occupations be conducted wholly or primarily, wholly within the primary structure of the premises. Currently, that section states that any structure either separate or adjoining to the parcel or to the principal residence that is to be utilized for either a home business or home occupation. To avoid confusion, it's recommended that the town amend that section to be in compliance with the 2020 Residential Building Code. Article 11, additional specific requirements, is very similar to Article 6, as it outlines special or specific requirements that apply to all districts. Also similarly to that article, the removal of commercial uses from the zoning law conflicts with Section 54, automotive repair shops, as allows the possibility of automotive repair shops in the town. Since they're no longer allowed in any district, the section is no further use, so it's recommended that it is removed, or that the town allow commercial uses by site plan review and or conditional permit in either a new district or by reestablishing a commercial district. Section 13, definitions, outlines the definitions for words. New York State Town Law, Section 263, requires that zoning, quote, be made in accordance with a comprehensive plan. The proposed zoning law will follow some of the Town of Solon's current comprehensive plan goals to maintain the country setting and rural character of the town and encourage agricultural land uses. It should be noted, though, that the disallowing of commercial uses and the requiring of larger lot sizes in residential districts move the town further away from some of the other desires in the comprehensive plan, such as mixed-use development and dense future development along local roads. In total, the proposed zoning law does not completely align with the comprehensive plan. However, it does achieve some of its stated goals. It's recommended that the town further consider the proposed zoning law's conformity to the Town of Solon Comprehensive Plan passed in 2017. Finally, the proposed zoning text amendment is considered a Type 1 action under seeker. Staff recommends approval of this application for zoning law for the purpose of promoting the health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community, the location and the use of buildings, structures, and the land for trade, commercial, residence, farming, and other purposes, only if the following contingencies are satisfied. That the town amend the proposed zoning law to allow commercial uses by site plan review and/or conditional permit in either a new district or by reestablishing a commercial district. That the town amend Section 16(2)D to show clear criteria on the keeping of domestic animals, removing any arbitrary application of the law. That the town define what constitutes a domestic animal in Article 13 definition. That the town consider amending Section 17, lot width, area, yard requirement, to avoid creating a large amount of non-conforming lots within the residential district. That unless the town amends the proposed zoning law to allow commercial uses by site plan review and/or conditional permit in either a new district or by reestablishing a commercial district, Section 22, Section 27, Section 31, and Section 54 be removed as they're no longer relevant. That the town further consider the zoning law's conformity to the Town of Solon Comprehensive Plan and conformance with seeker requirements.
Motion to accept staff's recommendations.
Sure.
Oh, second.
I guess I'll start.
Sure. Okay, discussion.
Yeah, it sounds like it's got some major problems. So why are we recommending approval?
That's my question.
Why don't we recommend they make changes and resubmit or something? Because it's got some major hassles, especially the lack of having any commercial property, which, like you said, violates state law. So whoever wrote this thing up, I won't make a comment.
Right, we're doing,
It sounds like they're not thinking very well.
recommendations, but what's the town's intention?
Right, but it sounds like it, that whoever wrote it up isn't thinking it through thoroughly, because it's got problems.
So, I can let Chuck explain the intentions, but we've been going back and forth with this since November of last year.
Okay.
We've
So-
made every effort.
Yes.
And they're still going through it the way they want to do it.
We've,
You can't deny by state law, you can't deny a use anywhere in a town.
As a resident of the town, that has been an ongoing
You can't do
issue
that.
for
I mean,
years
they're
and
open
years
to
and years.
lawsuits. is what they're
What
doing.
happens is
They
people
want to fight
come,
lawsuits the rest of their lives, and go ahead.
people
You know,
come and apply or open up a business, and then it is either found in violation or, you know, try to proceed through the procedural ways of making it, but it's still, you know, a non-conforming use that's not allowed. My comment, Chuck, is that zoning regulation should be something that is easily and accessible to all the residents, to let them know how to proceed with applying for or getting anything that they want, and whether it's not allowed or not, a variance application should be easy for them to be directed and guided through the process. This law is very confusing to me, and I've read a lot of zoning laws, and I get lost in it. My suggestion to you guys would be is, in order to make it less confusing, take out the flood, wind, and solar articles completely out of the zoning law and make them a town law in itself. One for each, a town law for solar, a town law for flood control, a town law for wind.
I'll admit that was my idea.
Yeah.
That was my idea to put them in. They didn't originally have
I
them.
kind of like them in myself, because at least you have one place to go for everything.
Yeah,
What I
but,
don't like is having 3 or 4 separate definition sections, one for each one of these separate laws. They didn't bother to take them back out, so you have to, and you might be some that are in conflict with each other.
what I,
Because each law has its own set of definitions, and then there's another set of definitions of zoning laws, so you might have a problem trying to find out what is what, you know? Like how do you look up, what was the one you said, domestic, what are domestic animals? I don't know. But which section of law is that under, you know?
well, with these laws, the articles of the wind, solar, and flooding, how many times are you gonna actually be approached for an application for these? Once or twice, possibly, but it's not gonna be a monthly, ongoing basis. You know, that's why I don't feel it's pertinent to the zoning regulations per se. If in those articles there are things that can't be achieved, then refer them to the procedurals of the zoning ordinance for variances or special use permits or anything like that. And lastly, I'd just like to encourage the town for growth and development. Solon has the potential of becoming a sought-after place for anybody that wants to leave a rural, urban area and come out to the rural area, and we see it happening all the time. And we shouldn't be afraid of expanding the main center of the town into a more residential area. You look at the map and it's pathetic, the small residential areas that this huge town of, you know, landform encompasses. It's just those little areas. I mean, it's growth, and it's only going to benefit the town with, you know, making it a bigger tax base and more revenue for the town. That's all I have to say.
That's all. So.
I didn't get the message, it was back there, I'm sorry.
So, I mean, why are we recommending approval? Why are we recommending denial unless you take things into consideration? Can we even do that?
I think
Alex,
it
can
needs
you
a
hear
lot.
me?
Yeah.
So a lot of the changes they made this last round, Alex will back me up on this, it came from recommendations. And I'm not opposed to heading it in another direction or giving them some direction to do so. I'm not directly involved with writing this. I merely sit in. I'm the enforcement officer. I like to know what's going on, how they're going to handle things. But certainly I wish Jerry could have been at least involved in the meeting tonight. Unfortunately, she's under the weather. But the biggest thing that we're trying to get it moved forward through too is we also have 2 standing permits for manufactured homes in non-compliant areas currently, which if something doesn't happen with them soon, it's either going to turn into lawsuits or what have you. And I've talked to the Department of State also in discussing a possible variance or something to that effect. There really is nothing that falls into place that would cover it. So I'm not opposed to taking some recommendations back, just questioning about how long this process might take before we'll have a new zoning law in effect.
Well, I think we offered multiple times to help the town add some of the required language, and I mean, some of our comments were taken into consideration, Chuck, but at the end of the day, it's still the no commercial district. That's really the heavy hitter. That's just not, you know, that's not something small. But they seemed very, very adamant that it was their law and they did not want it in there. So, you know, there's a point where when this gets filed with the state may be the ones to come back. And quite honestly, I can tell you up front that the state will come back and say that this is not acceptable. Because it is not in accordance with state law to not have a commercial district. There are allowable uses that have to be, if you're going to have zoning, you have to allow certain things. And it's not being allowed in this law.
Well, and just the town's own paperwork, their comprehensive plan, contradicts the zoning laws. I mean, there's contradictions back and forth in their own plans and paperwork and laws that we're calling out. It sounds like we're recommending to them, but they have no intention to listen to it.
And I mean, you know, like everybody knows, Tonelli's, it's a well-used, beautiful venue. That's very popular, and that would be a non-conforming venue because it's a commercial use.
I dare say, I bet I could drive down the road, that's a lot of money.
Right, oh, right. So, you know, we definitely, you know, had frustrations, with the process, but, you know, we gave our recommendations several times. So at this point, I think that Alex and I, quite honestly, has spent a lot of time, reviewing, the different iterations throughout the month, Alex especially, and we were at a point where we were basically like, well, we can help you incorporate this, to get you to get you something that would be acceptable and in conformance with state law, or it can be sent to the state and they'll deny it.
Point being, you can't have commercialism if you don't have a commercial district.
Oh, and I don't disagree. Like I said, I wasn't part of the architect of this piece that was brought forward. I put some input in the areas that I work on the most. But I certainly wouldn't be opposed to taking it back to them to reinstate the commercial portion of that.
As you know, as a code officer, that's gonna be your biggest fight, is people that are going to apply for and want to, whether it be a home-based business, whatever businesses they are applying for, but that's generally the number one offense that you'll find non-law abiding citizens are dealing with.
So, just a couple of things. I think, you know, the question that was raised earlier by Chuck about should we just deny it? And I understand where you're coming from on it, but I'd actually say we should on it. And the reason being is because of the first clause, which I really appreciate in there very clearly, that by going forward with this is that we support staff's recommendations that this is only going to get approved if they actually do the things that in here. And the very first one is reestablish a commercial zoning use. So they're by supporting their recommendations, we're actually supporting them, saying yes, these have to happen. If we were to deny it, saying we have no opinion really on it, is how I would interpret this. I think this, because of the way we've written recommendations, as only if the following really political perspective is what they've said.
I understand that.
So I would
a lot of this recognition, where I've seen a lot of towns, the recommendations, and that's what it comes to for me. People like, I approved it. That's why I get nervous. Stipulation. Bother reading them.
I think it helps that Chuck is for the conversation, and Chuck, this directly pertains to the headaches or, you know, the challenges that you'll be facing, really. So it's in your best interest to discuss it with them as well. My fear is if we then it could pass 40 and they would have our recommendation to for review.
What you're saying, if we deny it, they. Okay.
Change my opinion, I guess.
Again, does it make sense for us to change that word recommendation to stipulation?
I agree with Chuck, though. I think other municipalities will get something that says approval and they won't fill it back to me.
Well, as the GM states, that after you make a decision on whatever you choose to do, you have to respond and let us know how to act on any wording on here that is our recommendations only if satisfied. And you should make sure that the town reviews that and knows that that is how we, and if they don't, it has to be a supermajority vote and against us, and then you're still going to find, and the state's not going to, it's not just us to shut it down, you know.
I also want to say, the way the GML law, if they supermajority out our decision, they have to give us a reason.
Right.
So that would also have to be included, to ask you then why you're not following that.
Yes. I think that they have.
That was
Hey,
the
Chuck.
reasoning.
Put your microphone down a little bit away from your mouth. There you go.
I see both arguments.
They don't need a supermajority vote if they go along with what we say.
Right.
Right.
So if, I don't know, I understand where Chuck's coming from.
So they have to come back with a reason, is that, this makes sound crazy, but it's almost like proving the hardship, which, you know,
Well-
what's your reason? Because we don't want to do it. Yeah, okay.
Well, what's gonna happen is Chuck's gonna be inundated with other kinds of issues that he's gonna realize that this isn't working, you know, that we have to make change. And he'll just be back to the drawing board again, making those changes.
So he's the best lobbyist for this right here.
Right.
Do they have
I
a
mean,
lawyer?
it's in your best interest
Yeah.
to make
Yes,
it.
they do. They do have a lawyer, and I am a good person to play this position because I'm also not a resident of the town of Solon.
No, you should be, in order to feel the pain.
Nah,
No, I'm kidding.
I was born and raised in McGraw, but I no longer live there, so.
Any small municipality has the same issues, you know, we're, in the
Certainly.
country, feel like there are eyes on us all the time. We think we can build something without having any regulations to go by, but then it creates problems, whether it be for the neighboring properties or, you know, traffic control or a lot of different things it'll involve, but it'll come back eventually to bite you, so.
Well, and they're contradicting their comprehensive plan, but again, you know, we're going through it now, or trying to go through that. That changes.
Mhm.
That changes, so,
Right.
you know, is it the horse before the cart before the horse? I don't know how that all works out, but, you know, again, they go back to the drawing board, so change your comprehensive plan. But again, that's today. 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. When was we talked about this, when was our last comprehensive plan for the county?
The county.
Exactly, no, that's what I'm saying, so.
Long enough for the county.
You know, potentially the creation of a commercial district still allows so many hundreds of thousands of acres in the town for rural living. You know, it's not, a larger residential area still leaves a lot of open space in rural where you're not neighbor on neighbor on neighbor, you know, we're fortunate that we have this much area in the town of Solon that
Right.
we can afford to do that.
I actually floated an idea to the writers of this new law, the new zoning law, that they maybe take the residential district currently, that's just basically the hamlets, and expand it a little bit and call it the Hamlet District. And then they allow
Allow commercial use in that.
certain commercial
They
uses
can do
by
it, right.
special use and
Right.
conditional.
And allow certain
Okay.
commercial uses within that district.
Yeah.
They can do that.
And you can limit commercialism. I made a note of
Get a
the types
restaurant,
of
whatever they want
commercial,
in there.
whether it be a home-based business or a, what are the other types of small-scale retail? I mean, you don't have to allow industry or big box companies or that. You can limit your commercialism to small-scale retail. A little mom and dad's jelly shop, you know, or something like that is open to the public where you have to make sure the public is taken care of if they're using the facility.
Anyhow. So it really comes down to whether denial or
Yeah.
approval, and I guess I would go along with approval as long as you feel that's the best way of going about it. Not sure.
Does anybody want to
If we
add?
recommended denial, we couldn't have even
We
given
couldn't
you
keep
the
these
option.
in it, okay, I understand.
Does anybody want to add anything
A
to
lot
the
of
recommendation?
frustration on everybody's part, but I guess
You guys would feel that's the best way to get the message across.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I would defer to our experts.
Right.
If we simply refuse to accept your recommendations, period, then what can Solon next do? We heard if we accept these, they can only overrule them with a supermajority and a reason, right?
No.
No, that's
That's
not,
if
that's not the way it
that's
works,
if we
no.
reject it.
If we reject it,
then
they have to
can-
overrule
they
the
can
supermajority.
overrule the supermajority.
If we approve it, they can, it can go into effect with or without those recommendations.
Actually,
Like they can
it's,
pretty much do.
But our recommendation very clear says if the approval only goes into effect if they actually do those things.
right, so Bo is actually right, and it's the same as
Is
it's
it?
not, it's both ways.
You're saying they cannot, okay.
But it makes it more, I think it's more transparent if they have to overrule a denial by a supermajority. Because there's really not a good form of checks and balances to confirm that they actually followed this list of recommendations, is my.
Whereas if we do an approval, there is a checklist, you're saying?
So if we deny it, then they need to publicly overrule our denial with a supermajority.
Right.
But if we approve it upon, and even though it says here only upon, conforming to these things, there's not really a good
It just
avenue.
fades away.
Yeah. for us to
There's still
really-
a world where they comply,
Yeah.
so there's a possibility.
Well, there's no enforcement,
So,
there's no
Right.
enforcement.
But I
the
just
denial
want to
is discussed.
take us to the next step, though, because I understand what you're saying, but I do think there is the next step of enforcement, which is when this is challenged in court, the planning board had made very clear, we had passed, these are the things that are required in order to be approvable. So we are essentially, to my mind, thinking forward, we would be held blameless.
Right.
We have said, we were really clear to you, Solon, you had to do these things for our approval. You chose not to do them, therefore, whatever future lawsuit does not involve the planning board because the planning board made that. Now,
This
we
is
can also
CYA
say,
is what it is.
we deny it also, and we just deny the whole thing, go back to the drawing board. We're gonna deny the whole application altogether.
I think either way, we're covered, for future litigation. But I think that,
We want to
I'm
help
fine
the town.
with, it sounds like there's an undercurrent of people really just wanna deny this. And if that's the undercurrent, I'm willing to withdraw my motion to accept. Is that the undercurrent?
I kind of rely, yeah.
The flip of a coin.
Yeah.
Because again, we're strictly an advisory board.
right.
We,
And then-
we have no teeth.
We have no teeth.
And so again, we present this to a municipality in hopes that they read it, they understand it, they follow through it. But again, if you have, obviously somebody's written this up this way and they're pretty adamant about it. I think we spoke about that before, so.
A lot of municipalities really appreciate this board's input. They really take it into consideration. We get phone calls all the time, about our recommendations and, really wanting to discuss it. And I think they look to this board and the staff, to give them that technical perspective. But we can't ensure that every municipality does that. All we can do is give it to them. So,
And give you guys the backing of this board. I mean, that's the other thing, just,
right.
so that's the question to this, is what's gonna help in the further discussion, backing of the board, or us just simply saying, no, go back to the drawing board?
Well, then we're not backing these folks. They've compiled this information, presented it to us, and so, I mean, yeah, we interject with some different ideas, take this out, put this in, but, to me, us denying it, then what good did they do?
How about the table situation? Can we give them a chance to go back and,
So they've been tabling it for us and
Since November.
since November.
Because we've been,
They're waiting us out.
Well, and Chuck has a situation now that time is of the essence relative to a home, I believe, what was it, a modular home or something, I can't remember what it was.
Two manufactured home applications in the last 6 weeks.
Poor folks are hung out to dry. So, who are we looking out for here? Are we looking out to cover our butts or the public?
The hard part, whenever we get these applications, is unless it's, we kind of always discuss that it's still home rule. We are like an advising board. And at the end of the day, it's the municipality, if there, you know, if there's others in the municipality that would want differently, then they should attend the planning board meetings and volunteer to be on the planning
I
board.
mean, look at how many times in the years that I've been here, how many times the city's thumbed their nose at us. You know, I don't even know how many years I've been on this board, probably the longest one here, maybe before you, I think.
You
I
were
don't know.
before me.
You know, and things would come up with the city, and we'd make recommendations, and, you know, they'd thumb their nose at us and go on another direction, so. You know, I understand the frustration,
Yeah.
yeah, why the hell are we here then?
Some really.
And I might add too, that it's tough too when you've got a group of people that don't, they want to help, they want to be a part of it. There's not a lot of people that volunteer for this stuff anymore. And most of the people that are on this committee are probably not as educated in zoning as they should be, but you're going to run into that with the small townships.
Right. So anyhow, I guess I will change the long goals as long as, you feel it's, get it going. I was nervous about doing that. Yeah, I know. But anyhow, what are we doing?
Everybody else set with any questions, concerns, or discussions? All those in favor of accepting staff's recommendations as they are? Opposed?
I'm torn.
So that's no action, so that motion failed,
Motion.
but we haven't made an action yet.
What's our, so,
We can either try and vote to deny, or we can table, or we can try the motion to accept again.
well, can we make a motion then to just modify the motion to deny it unless these recommendations are incorporated into the law? Can we make that kind of recommendation?
Say that again?
Can we make
An
a
alternative?
motion that, that the.
Recommendation.
What's the recommendation? We're making it more to the town board, is that what this is?
Town resubmits.
That we will deny these recommendations, approval of these.
We deny approval of the zoning changes unless the following stuff in there is incorporated.
Well, that's kind of what we're doing, because we can only take three actions. We can either approve with condition, or deny. So approve with condition is kind of like that, it's like, but also if you deny, you can give a reason. We deny because.
Because we want to see staff's recommendations incorporated in the final design.
Right.
That way. Is that be appropriate?
You can do
Sounds
that.
like a motion to me.
Sounds like a motion.
We want to see staff's recommendations for approval incorporated in the final document.
So,
So that's gonna
So you
be
made a motion
a
to
recommendation
deny
added to what we already
Unless
have?
Unless staff's recommendations are incorporated in the final presentation to the board.
Okay, there's a motion, we need a second on that.
Second the other one.
Chuck can
Second it again.
Okay. All those in favor of accepting the amended staff's recommendations?
Accepting the motion.
No,
to
the
deny.
The motion.
The motion,
Deny.
motion.
Recommendations
for
are
denial.
incorporated into the final version of their zoning.
There, yeah. Yeah.
And I will vote yes.
Is that now? You got something to go out of here.
Right.
Yeah.
Chuck, are you clear what we did?
Was that unanimous, that vote?
any notes?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm clear of what you did, and certainly we'll work with them to move those changes into that final draft.
We want to approve it, so just bring it back as a final document.
Have a commercial district or allow some commercial uses.
Yeah.
Or get rid of the
I
commercial
think
use?
Alex spelled out really well in
Quite
the
well.
recommendation, the alternatives that they could at least have available within the zoning law.
Right.
I'll
No,
send that by report as well.
It's fairly
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah,
The changes aren't that big.
no, absolutely.
and we're very happy to help.
No, I appreciate your input too, and I'll take everything I've got written down from this meeting tonight back to them as soon as possible.
And Chuck, we record these and post them to YouTube, so if you want to direct any of the local planning board members to YouTube, they can watch this whole discussion.
True, very good. I recommend that.
Put that in his notes when you, and his.
Yeah, I'll put it in. But
Things I say really shouldn't be.
No, I
So,
Dress up better, shouldn't we?
what was our final motion here? It was denial,
and the reason they
All
were.
right, so,
Staff recommendation incorporated.
Are we going back to the,
Yes. we're
okay,
gonna go
Chuck,
back.
I think we're set there,
Yeah.
so,
Thank you, Chuck, for coming.
yes, thank
I
you.
know it was last minute.
No, thank you all. Appreciate it very much.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Thank you.
okay.
Okay. Still got 4 more to go.
Mhm.
Use variance review for the purpose of building a 30 by 60 cold storage garage on a monolithic slab in an R2 district without a primary residence / dwelling on the same parcel. This is, number 2 on the agenda and number 1 in the first packet. Property is described as 66 Route 200 in the town of Hartford, zoned R2, and is partially within an area of special flood hazard, Zone A. Is being referred to county planning because the property is within 500 feet of Route 38 and Route 200. The applicant is, I said that already. Garages are permitted in the R2 district as an accessory use. However, since there is no primary use on this site and garages are not allowed by primary use, they need a use variance. The property is partially located in an area of special flood hazard, but the proposed garage is proposed to be built outside of said area, so it's not going to come to effect. The applicant has indicated that the garage will be used for storage of materials and vehicles. I showed the intent of the R2 district, which is to provide an area within the town of Hartford where the living environment associated with residential development and their related facilities can be preserved. So I recommended that no commercial or industrial enterprise be associated directly or indirectly to this garage. I also mentioned the definition of a home occupation, which states that basically if there's no primary residence, you can't have a home occupation even though he lives next door. It's also relevant to note, as I just said, the applicant owns and resides on the adjacent parcel in the house. If the 2 parcels were combined, the garage would become an accessory use. The use variance would not be required, and area variance wouldn't even be required. I spoke to Adam Brown, the code enforcement officer, who spoke to the applicant, and the applicant does not wish to have the parcels combined because he intends the properties to have different owners. It's still recommended, though, that the applicant consider combining the 2 parcels so that the garage would become an accessory use incidental to the primary residence. In order for the use variance to be granted, the applicant must show that the applicable zoning regulations and restrictions have caused an unnecessary hardship, and the proposed use variance is considered an unlisted action under seeker. So, staff recommends approval of this application for a use variance to build a 30 by 60 cold storage garage on a monolithic slab in an R2 district without a primary residence / dwelling on the same parcel, only if the following contingencies are satisfied. That no commercial or industrial enterprise be associated directly or indirectly to this garage, that the applicant consider combining parcels 172.05-01-20 and 172.05-01-19, so that the proposed garage would become an accessory use incidental to a primary residence. That the applicant show the town the applicable zoning regulations and restrictions have caused an unnecessary hardship and compliance with secret.
Motion to accept staff's recommendations. Second? Dan? Discussion?
We're right back there with an approval. We're right back there with an approval. There are options to combine that, and I think the applicant said it's not going to be operated, the same person isn't going to use it, so that gives you the impression it might be a commercial use. I don't know. But I just think when we say approval with these conditions, the approval is kind of like okay, we can go ahead and do it. That's just my opinion from experience in the past. I just have an issue with that.
We usually just default to saying approval with condition,
Yeah,
just because if we say denial, we can't give you options.
I know.
That's the reasoning behind that.
So can I just add, along the, those lines, if we change the language to say, the staff recommends denial of this application unless the following contingencies are satisfied, does that still provide us what we need, but it puts it into the, it switches it a little bit. We're not recommending approval, the staff is recommending denial unless. It
You are allowed to say deny for this reason, so I mean, yeah, I could see that working.
It's semantics, but I think it's more clear.
Yeah, I think.
And we tweaked
to
it a little bit already, and so I think that would definitely be putting more behind it, especially if they see the denial.
Yeah, it sounds like he has the intent of doing this and selling it.
Well, it's,
Makes it
how much is
a
the
lot
water
to me.
property, right, or relative? It's owned by one Dakota, and he's the Dakota living next door. It's not like he's building the parcel, the garage on his, either daughter or somebody else's parcel.
Right, and then sell the parcel.
Right.
It's already a separate parcel, yeah.
Right, it's already separate, which is why he doesn't want to combine it. You can build it and then
Right.
sell it or give it or whatever.
Well, and he's created his own hardship, really, in my
Right.
opinion, because he has the option.
Right.
So he does that and he sells it, so what happens now? If somebody goes in there and wants to open up a garage, based on zoning, are they allowed to do that?
Well, no,
Yeah,
you'll need another variance to change the use.
So now it is strictly storage for somebody, for their own personal use, but they're not, it's not a resident. I don't know how that's,
Isn't it a father-son?
The father-son, what is
It's Jack and Dakota.
Okay.
I don't know that, I don't know the
Yes,
details.
Dakota was.
I don't know.
it's
You know,
irrelevant.
the same number, one of each.
But I think, what
No,
if,
not necessarily.
he didn't mention anything, Adam didn't mention anything, like they're building the garage and turning it into a house?
No, he didn't mention that.
And did he mention that it could
Yeah, I
possibly
totally agree.
use for future commercial business of some sort, or you're just assuming that?
He seemed pretty equally, he knew a little bit more, but pretty equally as, I'm not really sure about this. He doesn't know. The applicant has said that he's gonna use it for storage of materials and vehicles, and that's the only answer he's been given, as far as I know, that I've heard from him.
Yeah, whose materials and whose vehicles.
Right.
I have a big building, and, I get approached all the time, well, geez, I like to, store my car there, whatever. Well, technically, I can't do it. That doesn't mean that I'm doing it.
So can I recommend, so
yeah, I'd
to
like
your
to
point, you
recommend-
mean, can I recommend the language be changed where it says recommendation, the staff recommends denial of this application for use for blah, 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 on the same parcel unless the following contingencies are satisfied.
So that's a motion
A motion
to
to amend.
amend the recommendation. Can I
You
get
got
a
a motion on
second?
the floor, right?
We had a motion to accept in a second, and then I'm making a motion to amend the language.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
seconded the first.
To just change the word approval to denial, and then changing only if to unless.
Okay. So,
So we're kind of creating a third option, that correct?
Well,
As opposed to, again, I go back to when I first came in, you have two options, either approve or deny.
Based on history, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So now we've created another option, which I don't have a problem with that.
Right.
No,
I guess, can we do that?
I don't
The
know.
option of.
I would have to redouble check everything, but from what I know, basically what we're doing is we're denying, and the reason is we want you to do these
Things
these
before we
things. So the difference between approval with condition and deny because of this is they'll have to come back.
Right, it's
That's
compatible.
the difference.
Right.
Yeah. So they get the same information, it's just,
Right.
if they want to do it, they have to come back.
That's okay.
That
We'll go with that.
clarifies a lot of our situations
I'm
that
okay
we're
with that.
caught in.
And what I'm envisioning is that Alex will probably start incorporating that language into the report that really pertains,
Okay.
that really applies more to.
Okay.
Particularly these use variances are ones that just.
Use variances are really, I usually don't want them anyhow,
Right.
so.
It doesn't happen.
Yes. Or, I mean, definitely.
Okay, motion to accept the amended recommendations. Anybody opposed?
So just to be clear, this is a denial with, because.
Because of all
Okay.
ideas.
Yes.
I just think that to be clarified. I'll word that in a good minute.
Are we to the chickens yet?
That's the one after the next one.
Comp plan, then chickens.
Oh, man. All right.
Unless you want chickens, I mean,
No, that's
and want
fine.
chickens.
We can save the best for last.
Bigger.
Okay.
Winter
No.
chicken dinner.
Do you want me to just?
Keep going. Yeah.
Comprehensive plan review for the purpose of providing guidance for land use decisions in the town of Virgil. It's being referred to county planning because it impacts properties throughout the town. Their comprehensive plan has not been updated for over 10 years, which is why the Virgil Town and Planning Boards have jointly been updating the plan over the past 12 months to address the issues not addressed by the existing plan. That's the product that you see today. Most of the comprehensive plan is going to remain the same. It's really truly just an update. If I don't mention a section, then it has not been changed. So in the report, if I don't mention it in the report, it has not been changed. Section C, summary of goals, establishes goals and guidelines for the development of the town. Goal 4 will be changed to specifically encourage small-scale retail and service-oriented business in designated areas instead of generally encouraging development in to-be-determined areas. Goal 7, which currently encourages the continuation of the now-closed elementary school, might be a theme there, will be changed to encourage diverse housing to meet the needs of all age groups. Section E, land use analysis and rationale, lists 7 land use categories along with a narrative of the town's goals and objectives for those land use categories. The update would add language into the agricultural area narrative to recognize the importance of small and large-scale agriculture operations and to encourage the town to ensure zoning regulations are not overly restrictive on those regulations, on those operations. Under community services, the update adds language to recognize the Virgil Fire Department and encourage the development of a medical care facility, a library, and a community center in the town. The conservation areas narrative would be updated to encourage a review of the town's zoning to protect ecologically sensitive areas. Recreation areas narrative would be updated to recognize the closure of the Virgil Elementary School, recognize it as a significant loss, and encourage the development of new recreational opportunities for children in the town. Section F, Renewable Energy System Regulation, whose name is changed from the current title, Solar Energy System Regulation, which currently recognizes the need for solar energy systems in the town and encourages zoning regulations, which have now been passed as of 2017, I believe. 2017. The update would change this section to recognize the need for all renewable energy systems, such as wind and geothermal energy, and encourage regulations for those types of energy systems. Further language would be added to encourage development of residential renewable energy systems as well. Section G, development goals, discusses the specific goals and objectives of each of the 7 land use categories that were previously listed. The update would add a 7th objective to the agricultural subsection, encouraging small commercial, retail, and service-oriented business development in the hamlet area. Community service subsection is broken up into a lot of different subcategories. Senior citizen subcategory would have a 4th objective, to ensure zoning regulations allow residents to age in place. Education subcategory would be completely rewritten, as it previously referred heavily to the now closed Virgil Elementary School. The new education subcategory recognizes the closing and encourages its redevelopment in a way that is complementary to existing community characteristics. The subsection further goes on to recommend revisiting the town zoning code to ensure desirable development in the hamlet, by extension, the former Virgil Elementary School. The medical centers subcategory would encourage the establishment of both general and specialized medical facilities in the hamlet to support aging population. Back out of the community services, where am I? Oh, subcategories. Residential subsection would add to Objective 1, which currently encourages densest development along local roads feeding off of county and state maintained arterials, by recognizing multiple family dwellings as suitable with proper zoning regulations near the hamlet or major commuter thoroughfares. Also in the residential subsection, an additional objective would be added to recognize the incompatibility of single-family residences with an aging population. The new objective would then go on to encourage the adoption of Model Law Number 2 in the Department of State Senior Housing Regulations 2 model laws, which basically promotes multiple dwellings and integrated services, or with integrated services, retail and community-oriented operations near basically mixed use for seniors. That's what it encourages. The comp plan update will guide current and future town officials in crafting land use regulations that will encourage sustainable growth for all age groups in the hamlet. Should the town follow the goals outlined in its comprehensive plan, the hamlet of Virgil has the potential to become a sought-after place for aging residents throughout the region. Therefore, recommended that the town begin to review and update zoning map of Virgil and the zoning law of the town of Virgil to better align with the goals in this update. The update also recommends updating the profile of the town of Virgil, which is an attached document at the end. Planning Department agrees that it should be updated and offers assistance in helping update that. Finally, this is considered a type 1 action under seeker. Staff recommends approval of the application for comp plan update for the purpose of providing guidance for land use decisions in the town, only if the following contingencies are satisfied. That the town begin to review and update the zoning map of Virgil and the zoning law of the town of Virgil to better align with the goals outlined in this update and compliance with seeker.
Motion, accept staff's recommendations. Bo, second. Amy, discussion. I think it's a
He's been working on it.
well thought out.
The one comment I have, there's a comment in there in the recreation about the river trail going from Little York to Marathon. Is that still being discussed in the county?
Yep.
Okay, I wasn't sure, I thought it was put the kibosh on several years ago when people in Homer didn't want to deal with it.
Well, there's a difference. We're looking right now at a actual river trail, like the river as a trail,
Okay,
as a
right.
water.
But it's still in plan.
It's
Okay,
still
let me
in
sure.
plan.
I thought somebody put
It's still being
screws to that, so.
There's
All
a
right, good.
Facebook
That's
group
fine,
you could
that's
join
fine.
if you wanted to be more involved.
No, that's fine.
What's the name of the group?
It's the Riverfront Revitalization Task Force, I think,
Yeah.
or the Tiapnahoga.
Yeah.
But there's a group that's working on it right now, so, okay.
Yeah.
All right, all right.
And actually, Virgil stepped away away. They previously said they were interested, they stepped away, but Marathon is interested, so it kind of,
Okay, so it's still going on anyhow.
it is.
Marathon even
As
put a
long as I
boat
don't
launch
get stuck
in.
in the river and flip a kayak, then we're all.
Yes.
So what Virgil's doing with his comprehensive plan, I'm kind of going back to this, the Solon deal, whereas
Yeah.
they have the zoning laws that don't, compare, or go along with the comprehensive plan. So to me, they're being proactive here, so down the road, they're gonna come back with
Yeah, they
new
should be
zoning,
doing it, right.
correct?
Yep.
Yeah, I understand.
But it makes sense to do this, so.
And sensible planning.
Yeah.
Set your goal and then set your regulations to
Okay.
achieve
Right.
your goal. As opposed to set the regulation and then think about what your goals will be.
Stifling your goals.
And I think the school closing was a big part of that.
Sure.
You know,
Obviously, it's
Yeah.
mentioned several times.
That was a major driver behind it.
Sure.
That's driving.
Did we make that? Okay, all those in favor, did we do that already? All those in
Right.
favor? Anybody opposed?
Now we can get to the chickens.
Pretty hard time before the end.
Zoning text amendment review for the purpose of providing standards for the keeping of domesticated chickens. It's being referred to county planning because it impacts property throughout the town. This amendment will add an additional section under Article 6. It's going to be section 629, keeping chickens. New section is intended to regulate chickens on a non-commercial basis. As such, it will not apply to commercial farming operations in the town. The keeping of chickens would be permitted in agricultural residential conservation districts and neighborhood residential districts, subject to the requirements outlined in the section. It differentiates the keeping of chickens on lots less than 5 acres, on lots greater than 5 acres. Less than 5 acres, you will not be permitted to keep chickens, or to keep roosters, sorry, and we'll have the number of chickens capped to 6 per half acre. Lots 5 acres and over will be permitted to keep roosters and will not be capped on the number of chickens you can keep. Owners of chickens will be required to provide secured and ventilated coops for chickens. They have to be in the backyard and provide a minimum 25-foot setback. They have to be kept in sanitary condition and secured to prevent predators from getting in and chickens from getting out. They have to be in an enclosure at all times. If they're let out into a fenced area, they have to be monitored. Owners of chickens must also ensure that odors are not going to be perceptible beyond the property line. And a number of other regulations ensure proper caretaking of chickens and proper storage and removal of manure. It should be noted that the law regulates chickens without regulating other types of poultry. Since it's likely residents of the town will seek to keep other types of poultry, like ducks, it's recommended that the town consider changing the law to regulate all poultry as a whole, not just chickens. It should also be noted that subsection 2D would prohibit the outdoor slaughtering of chickens. As it may not be practical to slaughter poultry indoors for some owners, it's recommended that the town consider regulating the outdoor slaughter of poultry instead of just prohibiting it. One way the town can do this is by prohibiting the outdoor slaughter of poultry on lots smaller than 5 acres, or prohibiting the outdoor slaughter of poultry within a certain distance of property line. This is an unlisted action procedure. The staff recommends approval of this application for the purpose of providing standards for the keeping of domesticated chickens. Only the following contingencies are satisfied: that the town consider changing this law to regulate all poultry instead of just chickens, and that the town consider regulating the outdoor slaughter of poultry instead of prohibiting it in subsection 2D. And after that, you'll also see we got a letter from Sarah Hollenbeck, who is a resident of the town. Some of us received it in the mail. I'm not sure how many of us she BCC'd everyone, so I don't know who got it, who didn't. So
updated some of our recommendations as well.
We got it
They,
this morning.
Came in today, right?
I didn't get a copy of the letter. What was the extent of
It's
the
in
letter,
the,
though?
it's in the packet, it's in the packet.
It's in the packet, but I,
Alex, are there,
Oh,
are there lots in the residential district that are more than 5 acres?
Very few, that I know of.
yeah, I would think few. I didn't check, but I would assume few.
And does the law, I can't, is it?
I've lived in Virgil for 50 years. I have chickens.
Oh, you're the guy.
No, I wouldn't complain about it. I've had chickens there since my oldest son was 5 years old. He's 45 now. I'm not getting rid of my chickens.
Sounds like somebody from the city
Well, I asked
interjected into this thing. I mean,
complained, and
Somebody had a chicken complaint
nobody
somewhere.
immediately in the hamlet complained. They were all, where there was 3 or 4 houses over here, the guy had chickens, he go in his garage or something. I don't know.
Well, there's a guy up on Tower Road, down in Virgil.
Yes.
There's a guy that chickens are all over that road, the roosters are noisy.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, it's not Blodgett Hill.
Oh, that's not
That's Mike Will,
That's not Virgil.
That's not Virgil?
or
Okay.
Dave Will. No, yeah, they die in the road all the time.
They're gonna rename it Chicken Fricassee Road, I know.
So that's not Virgil, okay.
Part of this law does prohibit chickens from being on public roads.
I think we still have to make a motion to accept
We do.
staff's recommendations. Can I
I'll make
get
a
a-
motion.
And seconded, Dan?
No, I don't know.
Anybody? Steve?
You can also make a motion to deny, like.
I really think they pulled the better stuff than the chicken one in town of Virgil.
I mean, I think the comment that Sarah made makes sense to me to some extent, rather than the size. Distance from a property line might be more appropriate.
We do need a second before we can,
Oh, we didn't.
Officially.
I'm sorry. Okay.
before we can officially discuss. Second, yeah. Someone would like to second.
Oh, who is the second?
No second.
Pardon me?
Second the motion?
Need one, sorry.
Amy?
If those people not wanting to
Motion
second,
died then.
you can also make another motion if you'd
So
like.
I will make a motion to deny, and the reason is for Virgil to reconsider the intent of the law, particularly when it comes to noise and distance to neighbors as a.
What about Cape Cod?
I mean, we talk about slaughtering in here, so does that mean it might be a commercial use, a business use? I don't know, I mean, we don't know.
What do you do with?
Someone like to second
What do you
that
do with
other
your
motion?
bedroom when she moves away?
I need a second for either motion.
He still needs a second.
Yeah.
Someone needs to
I'll
second.
second him.
You'll second, okay.
Okay, vote.
We can now discuss officially.
I'm Wolf, I don't use pronouns. I don't know if it's a chicken or a
So,
rooster.
if we send a denial, as Bo explained, they can also receive the previous recommendations, perhaps.
I'll still-
as well.
No matter what we do, I'll send them my report.
Yeah, like I said, what happens with people like me, there's 4 or 5 people in town that have chickens for.
What about grandfather clauses?
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't restrict.
Not the chicken, it's
Didn't say you
grandfather.
couldn't have them.
I don't have 5 acres they're on.
But didn't say you had to have five acres, did it?
Yeah.
My neighbor had a chicken.
You're allowed under 5.
A quarter-acre lot next to me,
Yeah.
so.
5 chickens.
And you can't have roosters.
And they're never been a problem.
I missed that one too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor of approving the denial of the zoning text amendment
With the,
with the staff recommendation? Anybody
My
opposed?
son has chicken, should I understand?
And I mean,
I've had chickens before.
I asked Alan, and he says, nobody's complained about anybody
Kids
chickens.
have eggs in school and little chicks home, and there's chickens in the yard. My chickens were jumping on top of the fence, going to neighbor's yard.
all right,
All right,
we have one more. Okay. subdivision review for the purpose of subdividing an existing 21.59 plus or minus acre parcel into 3 parcels, a 7.38 plus or minus acre parcel with a Grand Union supermarket, a 9.35 plus or minus acre parcel with a commercial strip mall attached to the Grand Union, and a 4.86 plus or minus acre parcel with 2 standalone commercial strip malls. Properties are described as 3906 through 3944, Route 281, within the town of Cortlandville. It is all zoned B3, planned commercial business. So just making sure it's still recording. It's being referred to county planning because it is located within 500 feet of Route 222, Route 281, the Cortland County Airport, the City of Cortland Waterworks, and the City of Cortland boundary. The applicant is requesting a subdivision. I already said that. Oh, I did want to say, though, that the Grand Union alone will be parcel A. The strip connected to the Grand Union is parcel B, and the 2 standalone strips in the front are parcel C. The subdivision would create a 0-foot lot line between parcels. Ooh, sorry, thank you. Continue. That's probably what happened last time, because I had to think over it. Oh, yeah, close the map. It should hopefully be facing for now.
Record button.
All the way down.
Go up.
Up. No, up?
Yeah.
Here.
Right there. Just the ownership.
That shows it, yeah.
That's the one better map that showed the
Yeah, the other one.
subdivision line.
Eric's map. Eric's map. Honestly, I didn't even look at Eric's map, I just
No,
threw it in.
talked about.
That kind of shows it.
Oh, yeah, he did a good job. I don't know why I'm shocked, no, I didn't look at it. Okay. Yeah, so there will be a 0-foot lot line between parcels A and B. The code does not list specific required setbacks for business uses in the B3 district. Instead, the regulations are, quote, as required by the town planning board. So the town planning board can allow the 0-foot lot line upon approval of subdivision. Section 140-6C2B requires that all subdivided lots abut on a street. Since parcel A does not abut on a public roadway, it's recommended that the applicant obtain a waiver, as outlined in section 140-10. Separate from an area variance, there's a waiver in the subdivision code. It is further recommended that right-of-way language be added into the deeds of both parcel A and C to ensure ingress and egress to parcel A. Because right now, the ingress and egress is here. That's the way people, or you can come from the other side.
And you got from the other side,
You
too.
can come from the other side too, but.
That's all private property though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Belongs to
There must
the
be-
mall.
Yeah,
Is that right away?
currently it's all one
All
big
one
parcel.
Yeah,
And they're just,
that's not a town road though.
There must
No,
be
no.
this
a
is not,
right-of-way
yeah, that's private. This
easement.
is state route.
There must be an easement
Yeah,
through the,
easement.
up into the Burger King Plaza area, right?
I believe, yes, I believe there is up here.
Yeah.
It's on their easement map, I think, it shows some of those.
Yeah. But yeah, also parcel B does abut on a public roadway, but there's no drive there. It's just,
Not wide enough for one, I don't think either.
I don't think so either. So it's recommended that the applicant ensure ingress and egress to parcel B by either paving a drive or by adding right-of-way language into A, B, and C. Section 140-6B2C requires parcels to have a depth of no more than 3 times the average width. Unclear if parcel B that starts here and goes all the way back here is gonna meet that or not. So it's recommended that the town determine parcel B, or that should the town determine parcel B to have a depth of over 3 times its average width, the applicant apply for and obtain a waiver as outlined in section 140-10. Again, not an area variance, it's a separate waiver.
And can you just outline that lot again, just because that is a really funny
Yeah,
parcel?
so it starts here, includes this portion of the strip, and then comes back here into this funky thing.
That's all the retention area for those, yeah.
Right. Right. So, I started the math, and then I just, yeah, so I just said the town can determine.
Yeah, bowling alley is next to where that little, yep.
Where did we be?
Section 178-90C exempts the subdivisions from the SWIP requirements in their SWIP article. But it also says that such exempted projects need to make every effort to incorporate best management practices to reduce the negative impacts of erosion, sedimentation, and uncontrolled runoff. So it's recommended that an agreement be written into the deeds of all 3 proposed parcels to maintain the collective stormwater management facilities on site. And finally, the proposed subdivision is an unlisted action under secret. The staff recommends approval of this application to subdivide an existing 21.59 plus or minus acre parcel into 3 parcels, 7.38 plus or minus parcel, a 9.25 plus or minus acre parcel, and a 4.86 plus or minus acre parcel, only if the following contingencies are satisfied. That the applicant obtain a waiver as outlined in section 140-10, that right-of-way language be added into the deeds of both parcel A and parcel C to ensure ingress and egress to parcel A, that the applicant ensure ingress and egress to parcel B by either paving a drive along parcel B's abuttal strip or by adding right-of-way language into the deed of parcel A, B, and C. That should the town determine parcel B to have a depth of over 3 times its average width, the applicant apply for and obtain a waiver as outlined in section 140-10. That an agreement be written into the deed of all 3 proposed parcels to maintain the collective stormwater management facilities on site and compliance with secret.
Motion to accept staff's recommendation. Second.
Who was the first?
Dan. Discussion.
One thing, and I had a conversation about, after we sent this out, so we wanted to make sure that we brought it up, was the other facilities and utilities on the parcel, such as lighting, this paved parking.
Right now, everything, we did all the site design on all those parcels. And all the stormwater, the sewers and stuff all run through from one across the site, and they're all cross-linked and all sorts of stuff, so. And all the sewers run back through there, so whatever, I assume it's gonna be a mess for the lawyers to figure all the easements and stuff out, but as long as you have the abutment management, all utilities, not just stormwater. But
Yeah.
you've got
Yeah.
stormwater especially, like all the storm drains run directly out of the brand new near tops, right back into that storm, right across the parcel, so it
Well,
wasn't
right, yeah, there's
unless they need.
281 down through there and into there.
Right, in fact, in fact, the 281 stuff is one that has easements for that, to the other stormwater comes out of that. So the DOT also has easements.
Yeah, the state requires.
The state, yeah, exactly, so there's all sorts of stuff back in there, but as long as all they have, and maybe it's spelled out on those documents, you see all those easements they had, maybe they're part of that, I really don't know, but I doubt it. But as long as you spell that out, I think it's okay.
Do we have that though, or is it just stormwater?
It just says stormwater, it's
Yeah.
one of those things that just kind of, with everything else going on, just,
Yeah, I think the sewers do it too, the water system runs around all the facilities, the sprinkler system, and loop going all the way around this stuff.
Would you like to add another recommendation
Just
for
utilities.
utilities?
Just say, yeah,
Or
just
change
say
that to
utilities,
be
maybe
all.
stormwater and all your other utilities or something.
yeah,
Oh.
and other utilities.
Just
Okay, motion made by Chuck to amend the recommendation.
There's a main goes all the way around the
Oh,
building.
main water.
And then they feed in, each one.
But as far as the system itself, right, you have separate.
But I mean, I don't know who maintains it, that's the problem. I mean, you have separate parcels, who's gonna maintain the loop? That kind of stuff, and the storm, the sewers themselves go into one spot and go back and around and all that kind of stuff, so. If you have separate parcels, it's gonna have.
It's gonna be a fun.
Who's gonna be the
agreement.
entity in charge of maintaining that, I don't know. But you look at the same situation up at shopping center right above it, those are all half of them are all separate parcels now. That was all one big shopping center at one time, and they're all separate now too.
Average brother still has nightmares about addressing.
I had to readdress that whole,
Yeah, but that was the same way, that was all one big parcel at one time.
we ran out of addresses with the new Well Now Center there.
Yeah.
It was fun.
So it's, I don't like, whatever, so.
That's what they're doing up at Great Northern now, they're parceling it off,
Yeah,
building
yeah,
by
I assume they
building.
got some plan in mind to tear. The only question I do have is, I think it's the 4 acre, the front parcel. These are all have protection zone 1A, I believe. And the requirements in Cortland Village ordinance change if you're under 5 acres, I think, don't they? Or what you have to have for green space versus if you're over 5 acres. How much green space you have to have, because something in Cortland ordinance that changes. If you get below a certain amount, you can have less green space if you're under a certain size. It might be like 3 acres, I don't remember. But something like that. It may be 3 acres, may not be 5. I see that one's just 4 point something, and that might make a difference in what they can do in front parcels, whatever.
You know, with green space, retention bond.
Well, right now, like, they had a problem when they wanted to put a gas station out front there. Aside from being, they didn't want a gas station next to the city well.
Right.
But there's also a thing that if you disturb, right now, that parcel had, like, exceeded 50% green space in 1A. And there's a rule in Cortlandville that if you are gonna make changes, you have to make it so you increase green space, which they didn't want to have to do.
I remember
So-
looking at that, remember that when we, were looking at acceptance site plan?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so the other, so those rules change in Cortlandville, I know that, depending on the size, but I can't remember the exact size, whether it's 5 acres or 3 or what it is, but.
Well, Alice is looking that up, do you want to, have, to change that amendment?
Well, we have
Change the regulations,
motion
change the rule
to-
recommendations.
One
Yeah,
recommendation,
I need a
let's put
second.
that one
We need to
recommendation.
vote on
Yes,
that.
yes.
We have a motion to do it, I need a second on that.
I think we have a
No.
second. Oh, no, we don't.
I
I
was-
need a second.
Yeah, and Dan seconded it. So I was just kind of waiting to see if there was something else comes up with this. Or,
It may not be a big deal.
and if we were to include that in this.
What that would do, I
motion.
don't know, whether it may change or not.
So,
But it might change how the application, if it's a smaller parcel now, how they apply the rules for the 1A district.
so this motion so far is to include all utilities management on the site, on all sites.
Yeah.
Yeah, so should say that an agreement be written into the deeds of all 3 proposed parcels to maintain a collective stormwater management facilities and all other utilities on site?
I would,
Sounds good.
you want to not just put collective utilities management?
I think stormwater management
Want
is such a
management.
big deal.
Yeah,
that it would be
I would
good
go
to-
with it. Yeah, I think we got it, yeah.
Stormwater management as well as all other
Yeah.
utilities.
I did find the relevant section. Any parcel of 3 acres or less, any parcel of 3 acres or less created by subdivision or other method after the effective date of this article shall not exceed 70% lot coverage in zones 1A and 1B, and 75% coverage in zone 2.
So even though they subdivided, it can't make a difference then? All right.
Say again?
Even though they're subdivided, they still have to maintain.
We're still maintaining our 3
Yeah.
acres.
Okay, all right. And it's 3 acres anyhow, it's not 5, so, all right.
There is also something that says if it doesn't presently conform, but it doesn't say anything about subdivision. It just says if you change building structures, parking lots.
My only
Okay,
question, I mean,
yeah.
I agree with the intent of the utilities motion, but my only question on that is, I mean, what impact does that have on those 2 there's where Little Caesars is, which is totally disconnected from where the mattress store was, which is totally disconnected from where, you know, Harbor Freight and Grand Union are. I mean, I understand stormwater, they're all need to share, but the wording of the utilities, it's like it's really just that one, it's A and B that need to worry about utilities. They're the only ones that share utilities, right?
I'm not 100% sure on that. I can't remember.
I wouldn't,
I'm not sure
I know
anymore. I'm not sure if they are or not anymore.
depending on where it comes into the facility.
I think
and how it branches
sewer
off.
might
They could all be
I'm not sure on
sharing
that.
utilities.
If
I
they
think
have
they
its
might
own
be,
transformer.
I remember sewer going down the side
That
of
was our thought process, is we don't know
building.
where like the underground, like the powers run from, who's responsible for the transformers.
Yeah, that's the electric transformer behind the Grand Union. That's what-
We actually looked at, like, some of the light fixtures are similar,
You know,
so they might all be part of
Yeah,
the
they're all done
installation.
under one big thing at one time, but it's small. I don't know that for sure.
I mean, I'm fine, absolutely fine with the intent, I just wasn't clear about.
Yeah, I think the sewer line runs back through the other sewers.
Easement is the grass, grass with the dashed line. There's telephone. There's on the property line there.
No, it's been here since I've been here. Oh, this is
Like the
right.
housing,
Yeah. Any other utilities? What's up here on the front of the property line? That's the easement right there.
that is, the easement to get.
Chuck, how long has that been
They
there?
started.
30 years.
30 years, okay.
Job was a terrible job, and it kept changing over time. They
You
built
know,
the
that
tops
easement
first,
across the top there, it goes
then it was the
down,
retail
down,
side,
I think that's.
and the Staples, and then,
Oh, right.
then they built the ones out further on, kept going on and on. We had to tear down the gym,
You go out into the retention area.
found all
there.
sorts of nasty things in the ground where Jim maybe just dumped
Over
oil
there.
down. Into the septic system, that was really sweet.
Electric
Well, that looks like the roadway, one day it's not.
gas.
Sat there for 6, 8 months, and all of a sudden,
You know, for
Oh,
maybe
my God.
the owners of Grand Union.
So there's a lot of utilities all the way around there.
You know, it's private equity owns the Grand Union
Well,
brand.
and,
Right. I
behind
would think
there,
they don't
actually
want
the.
that property, maybe they do.
They
You know, they all have their.
Okay, where were we?
It's only within because it goes so far back, but yes.
Yeah.
Within 400 feet of the property where it is.
Oh, right, right.
They shut it up where they lease.
City close.
That is a
Always
big
pay
word.
yourself.
But that's a pump station for Cortland, so.
First you own the property,
And
then you lease it.
that goes back to here somewhere, and feeds over to here or something. So that's important.
They do a switch. That's just business philosophy.
Anyhow,
Okay.
but,
So we have-
the thing about these is handled.
So we have, an amended recommendation here. All those in favor of accepting the amended recommendation? Everybody unanimous? Okay, how about we accept the whole package recommendations with the amendment? All those in favor? Anybody opposed? Okay. Phew, oh, we still have general municipal returns.
Yes, we just have 2 returns this time. We have one in the city and one in Preble. So if you have any questions on those, if you want to just do a quick rundown.
Return, we don't care.
I mean, they probably already, I know the cities has already gone through. I don't know, Amy, I don't know if Preble's has already gone through.
Which is the one?
Dahlia,
Delia?
okay. We're set with them. Anybody have any questions on any of the
Rework on that
returns?
spreadsheet again.
Yeah.
It wasn't that hard because I tried to pay attention
Don't
anyway.
be saying stuff like that, but it wasn't that hard.
Oh, it was so hard, I worked endlessly.
Play it up, man, play it up.
Put it together in like an hour.
pay season.
I should have started reading about a week before.
Yeah, I didn't read all this.
Under
I was
promise,
up till midnight last night, but then again today.
So when we get a new director, we're gonna have to have a new director, right? So are we gonna get like, we should make a recommendation at some point when that happens, that we have like something, water and something to eat here when we have our.
Oh.
The director has to
Well, this
take
is
some
the
action.
last meeting.
I wasn't on the hiring committee, I don't know.
So what do you, a celebration of the new one or the leaking of, or?
Tricia will be here to sign the reports. She's leaving the day I'm gonna send out the reports, so.
Our next meeting is October 19th.
14.
And then
Oh,
when you,
I thought you said first.
No, 14.
But I feel bad, yes, myself.
I think we do too.
Very well.
Yeah.
We have your email anyway.
Right now. Well, Trish, sorry to hear you go.
Yeah, I wish we could have had a going away.
We should have a party.
We'll invite her back for the Christmas party.
There was
Yeah,
Christmas
there you
party, we
go.
didn't have one last year, that's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I'll definitely come back, it won't be far, so. And I told Alex I wouldn't be opposed to, down the line, if there are vacancies on the board, and you needed.
Well, there is currently a vacancy.
Well, there is, yeah.
I was hoping to have a few months off without night meetings.
Yeah, right.
It needs to have a different title underneath.
Yeah.
Donation to appoint an acting for interim.
Did we want to make a
Definitely
motion to
we'll
adjourn?
talk about
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Oh, I guess we should.
Unless we have announcements.
Unless you want to.
Any, nobody get, don't anybody dare make
Make a motion.
more announcements like that.
Second?
Well, hold on a sec.
I guess officially, yes, do you think a recommendation from this board?
This board has a lot to do with planning in the county. If this board wants to make recommendations with regards to the search of the new planning director, I think the committee would take it under advisement.
While the meeting's still in session, I would like to make a motion that the county legislature consider the current staff, in interim position as director,
While we conduct the search.
while they conduct the search.
I'm currently working on my master's, I'm very busy.
I said interim.
Oh, we got me.
You get a feel for it. You decide.
I mean, I figured that would happen anyway.
It's gonna happen anyhow.
I mean, you gotta do.
Well, no, generally, in a lot of instances, no, don't.
Yeah.
They try to get off on the cheap. Oh, no, we're gonna hire somebody, you just keep doing it.
Then you have to find another.
There should be an official interim director.
I agree with recommending now.
So I make that motion from the planning board.
Right.
I'm okay with that.
Yes, I agree too. Motion
We have a second?
second.
Second. You have to vote.
Oh, all those in favor?
I will officially be marked as an
You
abstain,
can't.
as chair of that committee, I
You
can't.
can't vote.
That's fair. Yeah.
So I will abstain from the vote.
Okay.
But
But we still have enough.
understand the-
Certainly, and a commenter that
Happy.
very good demonstrated proficiency and competence in the role.
Mhm. Definitely. Thank you, yeah, thank you for that recommendation.
I'll do as asked.
Thank you.
You don't need much.
Well, you're gonna do it anyway, so you're
Right.
also trying to get paid for it.
Yeah, that's true, that's true.
Wait, that wasn't in the motion. I was listening for it.
That's what interim implies, period.
Well, I think,
More
no,
than
no,
enough.
school district, we have Trish come back for a couple hours a week for $1,500 or something like that. No, school districts do, and they have a interim.
Well,
Directors or whatever.
Dan hung on for a while and.
You did have to move on for the meeting, so.
Okay, motion to adjourn?
Somebody made it, right?
So moved.
Well, we did a motion there before that, so we're not gonna count that motion earlier.
Amy, moved, second. Cool.
I was told you need a second for adjournment.
Some people don't even.
So to confirm, our next meeting in October is gonna be 5:30 again, we're now,
If that person is there.
we are gonna go for 5:30?
I thought we kind of started that last meeting.
How's that,
I was
how does
wondering-
everybody feel about that?
I mean, I
I'm,
wanted to do that.